focus on what's wrong. And then focus on what's right. And this is just the absence of illness. Which one is thriving? Focusing on what's right. So here, we can help individuals thrive. That's positive psychology. So I have a few questions, and then I'm going to give you a little assignment to do. Where's my handout? Okay. So, how many of you can answer the question, or we're going to try, what should I do with my life? You're all in college. No, you guys. In positive psychology, these are some of the things that we would look at. So what would I do with my life? What should I do with my life? Okay.
What should I do with my life?
Yes.
Continue to finish this course, being able to graduate, continue to focus on helping my kids, and continue to focus on my career. My career is going through a decent path. I'm happy with where it's going, so just keeping up with what I'm doing, be beneficial not just for me, but for my family.
Okay, so we have career, we have family, we have education. Okay. Who else? He mentioned career, family, what else? Education. Nellis.
Okay, what I should do with my life, I'm already working on it, meaning I'm back in school.
Okay.
And that's my main focus right now, that I should invest more time in my studies.
Okay.
Instead of being a balance between work and school, it should just be school. And the other thing that I have a big struggle with, which I'm already taking care of it, I've already put on my phone a limit of how much social media I get. So what I mean by this is I invest too much money on seeing other people happy. That is just bringing me down, because I'm like, oh, I'm not going out. Oh, look at her nice clothes. I don't have that nice clothes. Oh, look at her shoes. I don't have those shoes. So I'm just bringing myself down by looking at somebody else's happy moments, because, they could just be pretend.
Yeah.
So I'm already working on that. I already have the limit, which is helping me a lot to realize that I actually don't even reach the limit by myself. So I put a 5-hour limit per day, and my average is like 2 hours per day. So that's not bad. So I'm getting to realize that what I'm doing with my time. So my thing is my time, my school, and living my life and not looking at somebody else's life.
Very good.
Thank you.
Excellent. I love that initiative. I love that. That is a very positive psychology initiative. She is taking charge of her life, and she is saying, this is what I'm going to do to thrive. That is something to thrive. And it's so true. Social media has such a big impact on our satisfaction scale. We're going to do a satisfaction scale this month. And it has so much to do with that. Because if you think others have so much more or so much better off, that will bring you down. And I call Facebook fake book. Because,
Oh, that's another thing. I deleted Facebook, so that's
Okay.
And I started reading books again. So I turned off my TV, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna focus on what's right and stop TV, yes, and books. So
Okay.
last night I started reading books again without my TV being on the background.
Okay, excellent. And those are things that make you feel better. And that's one of the things that you do in positive psychology counseling, is that you find things that make the client feel better. We focus on what they're doing right, not what they're doing wrong. Okay, and you know, I love to focus on what's being done wrong. My mother, when I was growing up, my mother had a saying, lo bueno no se dice. The good stuff doesn't need to be mentioned. And I never agreed with that. I'd be like, why? Like, why can't she compliment, or why can't she, you know, say something that's positive? And then I turned into this therapist that focuses on, okay, so you're doing that right, I don't need to talk about it. And I turn into the exact thing that, you know, she raised me to be. And then I made a profession out of it, you know. So this is a whole different way of looking at things. What creates happiness or well-being? We're going to use the word in here, well-being. What creates happiness or well-being in someone's life?
Money, stable relationships.
Okay, stable relationships. Let's just write it here, and then I'll tell you the breakdown. Someone said money.
Money, health, family. That's what it is.
Health, family. Okay, 50% is genetics. How do you feel about that?
Some.
50% is genetics. So think about families that have a trajectory of depression versus those that thrive. So you got 50% there. 10% is, I'm trying to think of the word that I read in the book, circumstances. And 40% is what you guys said. This is environment, your choices. That include all of these, stable relationships, money, health, family. However, research on money shows that more money beyond what you need to survive, beyond what you need to meet your basic needs, does not contribute to happiness. How many of you believe that?
I know that.
You do?
Yep.
How?
Cause
Because I doubt it.
no.
Or at least I want a chance to doubt it.
That's the thing. In my life, there was a point where I was just making money. I was dancing. I was working a day job. I was like living the life. And you know, I was alone. I didn't have a kid at that time. I lost it all and ended up on the streets. So, and I went through drugs, through like a whole bunch of stuff, living with dudes left and right, sleeping with dudes left and right. Like, I went to jail. I lost my car. I traded it in for a Chevy, a big truck, and I ended up losing that. I lost my great credit. And yeah, like I said, I ended up on the streets with nothing.
Okay, so do you attribute that because during the time that you had money, you
Yeah,
didn't
like
work on self-worth? Or you
right.
work
I
on
didn't.
good choices?
I wasn't happy either because I was looking at my bills and my rent and all that. You know, took up most of my money. But it wasn't even as much money. But I saw it at that time as like, if I wasted even $1, I'm gonna be ruined. So, but I'm stingy with my money too. So, but yeah,
But
that's
there's a
how.
lot of research on this particular topic, because a lot of people assume that if they win the lottery, the
Yeah.
lottery's up to like, what, 234 million or something like that, that they'll be happier. And research shows that within a year or two, those people are back to their exact baseline. So it's not something that's sustainable. Once your needs are met, that's pretty much all the effect that money is gonna have on your life.
I also became schizophrenic. They put me in a mental hospital because I was just gone. That's how I was.
So you've had the experience
So yeah.
of being happy with and without money, and not being happy with money and without
And
money.
now I'm just like tight on money
Okay.
because of my son and me, but
Okay.
we're all right.
But you seem happier
Yeah.
in the sense that you're more fulfilled as an individual.
Yeah.
Another question that positive psychologists might refer to is, what are my strengths and what do I do best? Who wants to tell me their strengths and what they do best? It's hard to talk about the positive, isn't it? We're so used to just beating ourselves up and me telling you, oh, and this is your trauma and this and this. This is a whole different change of a mindset. And like Mr. Pachi said, there's not that much research. Now there's much more, but it's not compared to the amount of research that exists with just traditional psychology. Trisha.
I think my strength is helping others,
Okay.
solving everybody else's problems. I'm really good at that. That's my strength. And what was the other thing?
What are my strengths and what do I do best?
Okay, helping others, that's my strength. And best, makeup.
Very nice.
Yeah, so.
Okay, that's excellent. Okay, in a minute, we're gonna take a values scale and we're gonna find out some of our values and our key strengths. Who else? What are our strengths and what do I do best? There's gotta be something that you're good at.
That's an interview question, you guys need to know these things.
Yeah.
If you're gonna get if you're gonna apply for a job.
That's when you
Where
start
do you see
lying.
yourself in 5
You
years?
lie. You lie at the interview. Because you need the job, so you're gonna be a quick story in your mind like, I got this.
It depends on the job. Like,
Well, this would be
Right.
something we would discuss in therapy.
Because
In
then
positive
we can ask
psychology,
one
we
to
would
the first
discuss
one,
strengths. That's why one of the things I said to my son was, do you want me to send you to a career counselor? A career counselor, realm of positive psychology, would talk about his strengths, so to see where he would thrive. So we have to become comfortable with at least the things that we're good at.
Yeah, and some of these personality tests and things like that that you take, like, I've taken tests where, you don't know, in college, you don't know what to do. There's actual tests that you can take that will gear you towards a career, and you can take them online too, geared towards a career that would fit you with your personality, too.
But you guys are old enough to know that you're good at certain things. So let's get out of our comfort zone
Go ahead.
and say, okay,
I'll say, I know I'm very good at listening. People can talk to me and I can just sort of it and just take it.
This is a wrong.
I feel like I'm good at problem solving, whether
Okay.
it's a family issue or job related issue. Once I start my task, I'm not done until I finish. What else? Good. Try to. Probably feel like I'm a very loyal person, so just to give an
those are excellent. Those are excellent. Can you see how when we start talking about our character strengths, we can find more meaning in our life? Because now all of a sudden, and this came up in a class a few weeks back, I think it was with you, that when you decided to stop trying to commit suicide, that you knew that God had a purpose for you in the world, whether it's to have children or to help this little boy that you're working with. Like, you're starting to find your purpose in life. That's a big thing in positive psychology. Is my life purposeful? Is it meaningful? When we start recognizing our character strengths, when we start recognizing our values, when we start recognizing, that we're good at something, that means that there's a reason that we're here. It gives some more meaning to why we're here. People need someone to listen. People need problem solving. People need loyal friends. Those are things that are lacking in the world. So it all of a sudden gives meaning to your life and why you're here. Okay? Money is one of those things that's tangible, but it's fleeting. Really, research has shown that if you're doing goals that are for you, they're okay. That's part of happiness, that's part of positive psychology. But really, it's a bigger global picture. Is what you're doing, is what you're contributing important to others? Is it making a difference in the life of others? That has a bigger impact than just something that's good for you or a goal that you set to climb a mountain or something. Yes.
I read somewhere that that's something that millennials are looking for. What I read was part of why millennials leave their job. So there's a lot of turnover on the job because that was one of the reasons they don't find a purpose on what they're doing. So, and I think it's not just millennials. I think it's everybody that if they find a good purpose on what they're doing, they're more likely to stay in the job.
Absolutely. And research shows that when employees are appreciated, that goes further along than a raise. In the millennial thing, part of the problem with the millennials is that in addition to wanting, they grew up in this social media world. So everything was expansive. The world is small. I need to be saving the rainforest, or I need to be, saving the earth, or whatever it is that they grew up in. There's a big movement towards veganism, or there's a big movement towards less waste, a lower carbon footprint, those type of things in the way that millennials grew up, and a lot of you are millennials. So there is a need to do something bigger. It's one of the reasons in millennials that we hear of the gap year from high school to college. Go out and live a little, go out and travel abroad, go out and experience some life, and then you come back to college where you've had some lived experience, because then I have a purpose and I'm bringing some feedback to the classroom. I have actually something to offer. That's one of the great things about this university. It's interesting because now we have a main campus, the flagship campus, that the majority of those students are straight out of high school. It's a completely different model than what all the other Kaisers are about. The Kaiser system is an adult learner system where each and every one of you have lived experience, and you're bringing that to the classroom. That's what makes the university strong, that you're not just right out of high school. So it's interesting to see that there's a whole campus sort of dedicated to those students that are right out of high school. It's got to be a very dynamic, very different dynamic in the classroom.
Do they have the same dress code and everything?
No. They don't have the same dress code. It's geared towards athletics. There's a lot of athletes. And so it's a little different. It's the only campus that's like that. All of the other campuses are the Kaiser model, but this one's a little different. But one of the things with adult learners is that you guys bring in relevant information to the classroom. So that's part of why classes are the way that they are. And they're small, and we spend a lot of time talking, especially in a program like psychology, on our issues, because this brings relevance to the material. With most millennials, that's not the case, so that's why the gap year is a big thing with the millennials. The other thing with the millennials is that they oftentimes don't want to work in the lower level or regular sort of jobs because they do want to make such an impact and a difference. Well, you kind of have to pay your dues. What am I, Gen X? I think I'm Gen X, I don't know, whatever generation I am. My generation is like, no, you gotta pay your dues, and then you get to that meaningful job. But they're changing the world. It's one of the reasons why there is this movement in positive psychology. And if they can identify their strengths, then they can start a blog, and they can go travel, and they can do an Instagram and become an Instagram model or an Instagram sensation, and they are changing the world in terms of, you know, what jobs they're creating for themselves. Everybody can't be an Instagram sensation. Everybody can't be, you know, a blogger. There's only so much that we can tolerate and that we can deal with in a certain saturated area. But we are seeing that they have changed somewhat of that dynamic of what the work environment is. What are my dreams and interests? What dreams do you guys have? In positive psychology, it is noted that having hopes and dreams, hopes and goals for the future is a big component of happiness. So what are some of your dreams and interests? Yes.
I want to hear yours. You want to hear my dreams? Okay. Well, my dream is to open up it's a boutique, but instead of clothes and stuff like that, it's where you could come in and you come and get your makeup done, or we can come to you. Just,
Beautiful.
yes.
Is it realistic?
Yeah.
It's realistic. This is a doable dream. This is something that has legs. This is something that's, remember when we talk about goals, we always ask if they're SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, timely, and realistic. This is a realistic dream. So what's it gonna take to take it from dream status to doable?
First, I have to stop being afraid of failing. That's what's holding me back. Like I've helped a lot of my other friends to start their YouTube channels and do all of this stuff, and I'm just watching them just flourishing, and I'm just like, I'm just afraid of, what if I do it, and then I don't make it as big as they are right now, and then I'm just like, I think that, I'm afraid of failing.
Okay.
So, that word is very,
What's the worst that can happen if you fail?
then that was my main dream. So, I don't know what to, so I feel like if I fail, then I won't have anything to look forward to, and that's the thing that keeps me going.
That's so super interesting. It's like, let's keep it as something that's just a dream.
Just keep it up there.
So I always have something to look towards.
Does not touch it so it doesn't fall apart.
Rather than
Does not
making
touch
it a reality and possibly it, be short-sighted or not, fulfill exactly the way I expected. But let's talk about failure for a moment, because failure, we know, is a big thing in people's happiness. There's actually a correlation with people that are happy and successful and failure. And now let's ask, what's the worst thing that can happen? Do you fail and you not get up again?
No, I'm pretty sure I would get back up, but I just don't know what, I didn't have a plan B. And normally I have plan A, B, C, D, go all the way down, but it was just like, okay, what's the next dream then? Like what?
But why does it have to be a new dream? Why can't it be a tweaked dream? So for instance, you start this thing where the people come to you. It doesn't work. Let's say the overheads are too expensive for the location. That could be a failure. Then all of a sudden you start going to people. That is the same dream, it's just tweaked. That's part of what we do in positive psychology. We don't let that negative thinking, we don't let those self-defeating thoughts perpetuate with clients. We sort of force them to find alternatives to what they're thinking. We don't just let it, oh yeah, you're right, you failed, you suck, you know, you must have failed because your parents failed, and, you know, the stuff I love to talk about. You know, oh, well, in the womb, you know, your mother started a business and she couldn't make it, so of course you can't make it. Here we are trying to reframe this for a client and help them reframe it themselves so they don't just shoot themselves down the moment something doesn't go as expected. 40% is environment. 40% are the choices that we make. That's a lot. And if your genetics are in your interest, in your favor, which just facially they are, skill-wise they are, you're pretty ahead of the game. You're more prone to succeeding than to
That's
failing.
90% right there, woman. What are
Yeah.
you waiting for? I'll be your first client.
You know? So you've got a big chance of success. So reframing and retweaking what success is or what failure is one of the things that we'll do.
Didn't I read, one of the, you know, any of these successful, scientists, inventors went through like thousands of failures. I read the biography of Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the telephone. How many failures did he have? Einstein, you know, or who was the light bulb? Edison. Thousands of times did he fail. And he just kept going. You know, and revolutionized the world. You know, so the one of the points that we'll probably get to in positive psychology is resilience.
Yes.
It's persistence, it's determination. All those are things that help people pursue their dreams. But I understand what you say about being afraid of failure. I used to say that I was afraid of success, which is sort of the same thing. Because, well, what if it does come? Then what am I going to do? What if I
And
do
that's
something?
a legit fear. That is
Yeah.
a legit fear. I think that that's something that I have too.
Yeah.
That's what we call a limiting belief. And people that have a fear of success, one of the things that can impact is, will I be a burden? Will I be a burden to my family, to my friends, to my children, if I'm successful? Because all of a sudden, you have to give your time maybe to some other people. All of a sudden, your resources are limited. All of a sudden, you know, you're needed to be spread thinner. Or what if, just an example, the paparazzi. You become successful and the paparazzi are always around. That can be a burden to the people, your relationship, to the people that are involved with you.
And if you're successful, you're expected, there's more expected of you. What if I can't attain, I can't reach those expectations people have of me? You know, so, but those are all obstacles that, you know, we need to overcome. And sometimes we have this big, wide view of things that overwhelms us, when actually you just take one baby step at a time and try things out.
The problem is that sometimes like we have negative thoughts and then that seems more real than
Yes.
what like the dream that you have.
Absolutely.
So and that
Absolutely.
it kind of brings you back and it's kind of scary.
It absolutely is, and we love talking about the negative in here. That's one of the reasons, that's where we thrive.
Yes.
That's why positive psychology is such a turn on traditional psychology. And it is, it's about defining these things that we may not have a real good handle on because they're scary, we're afraid of them, you know? And how many of us were told that we could succeed at everything that we do? I don't believe that we can succeed at everything that we do. It's not a belief of mine. But I told my children growing up, oh, you can do it all and you can be whatever, and you know, I was that kind of parent. And you know, at least I didn't sit there and like tell them all the negative, but most people are brought up, maybe not necessarily with their parents, but society, teachers, the television, you know, that things are harsh, that things are more difficult. So to switch it around and now all of a sudden have to see a client and be more positive and focus on the positive and the strengths and your choices and the effect of your choices, it's a completely different way of counseling people. It's so much easier to talk about the negative, it's so much easier to
Solve problems.
solve the problem and explain where it comes from and say, oh, well, of course this is why it's this and this sucks, and, you know, validate the vulnerabilities or validate, you know, the negativities. But turning that around that could be tricky. That could be tricky. I mean, it's not normally where I practice from. So it's a completely different thing. Now we're gonna do some mindfulness stuff in here, and mindfulness